Sahai, respected Shri Pratap Irani, and friends. I was telling Mrs. Sahai that while I kind of volunteered to speak on whatever topic that is suggested to me, I must say this was a difficult one. And I have actually decided not to adhere to a structured way of dealing with this subject, but to say my piece, of course, completely with reference to the topic in hand. And in that sense, I'm not too sure whether this lecture will meet your expectations. But at the same time, let me give it a try. See, there are green economy is a subject which perhaps is under maximum debate. There are, of course, very rational parts of this debate, but there are also many irrational parts of this debate. And it seems to me that it is rather difficult to kind of sift this debate in terms of these two sides. Just to give you an example, something which impacted me. As you know, I spent whole of my life in dealing with atomic energy, which, by the way, I believe is green energy. Many of you may not agree, but I do believe. We can debate on that issue. After my retirement from Department of Atomic Energy, although I continued my interest in nuclear, I was asked to take interest in solar energy. So I also chair the Section 25 company set up by the Government of India, Solar Energy Corporation of India. And the day that was announced, there was a media report saying this is a perfect conspiracy of the government to kill solar energy. And I felt very odd about this, but that's what I was trying to say in terms of the debate. There is another thing which will tell you how these things move over a period of time. You might have heard about Professor James Lovelock and Sir Patrick Moore. These are the people who are actually founders of the Greenpeace movement worldwide. Professor James Lovelock has written a book called Revenge of Gaia. It's all on environment. And he actually argues there that the Mother Earth, on account of the burden created by the humankind on the Mother Earth, is a very sick entity to it. And then he is analyzing this issue, including what solutions we have in the short term and the long term. And the sum and substance of that analysis is today the needs of the people and the need to kind of ensure good environment around us absolutely necessitates the use of nuclear power. And he says, he himself says, I don't like fission power. Maybe when fusion energy, which will also be seen, that will be the right answer, but that's going to take some time. And so we have no choice of all the other alternatives. Nuclear power, in fact, he goes on to say, seems to be the only answer. Sir Patrick Moore, similarly, has been another founder, and he is now a great champion of nuclear energy. He goes around the world giving lectures. He is visiting India, I think October or November, and he will hear or at least see through media some of it. So that's the shift taking in time over a period of 40, 50, 60 years. These two very eminent people, but they still champion green energy, but the perceptions do change. So seen in that light, I think it's important that and that's where I want to talk about this subject in a somewhat unstructured manner. Mrs. Rai talked about some of these issues. The challenge of promoting green economy to me, this is in Indian context. Some of it may not be relevant to the Western economies or advanced economies, because those economies are characterized by, first of all, an income level which is quite large, but disproportionately large compared to what is necessary for a good quality of life. Those economies are characterized by stable population, and also some of those countries they have actually shifted, and I'll talk about that. The characteristics of the economy within the country, how it shifts with the advent of the impact of knowledge economy on the overall economy. And so it's not, I think, if one were to debate about the same subject in the context of the advanced countries, in fact, I myself would talk quite different. And that's another thing that we need to debate that takes place in the West. We cannot put it straight away to India because the situations are, in fact, radically different. Although, if you talk in terms of bullet points, they may appear to be the same. So, as far as India is concerned, we have our population is not stable, there is continuous growth, and we know that population pressure and the health of earth, there is a relationship. There is a certain amount of pressure can be sustained. Beyond that, there are issues. So that's the first point. The second is, as the development takes place, which must, as the quality of life improves, and I'm not saying that quality of life improves with higher income, but certainly as you move up on the economy scale, your aspirations go up, your capability to fulfill those aspirations is better, and all that leads to growth in consumption. And whether one likes it or not, that's an issue that one needs to cope up in the context of green economy. Then of course we have several cycles which have to be in equilibrium. We can talk in terms of carbon cycle, we can talk in terms of nitrogen cycle, we can talk in terms of oxygen cycle. There are several, and they operate through different ways. And find a lot of literature on these. But it's important that there is a certain degree of equilibrium in these cycles, because disturbance of this equilibrium changes the proportion of quantities in different phases of that cycle, leading to environmental impact. Some of it could be serious, and the climate change issue that we are talking about is actually a manifestation of the disturbance to the carbon cycle in some manner. Then, of course, whenever one talks about a new development project, you have to worry about the waste arising, and then suppose goes with project by project that you must have a credible waste management system which makes sure that whatever are the norms in terms of waste management or for that matter impact on environment are adhered to. And in so doing we have to worry about the carrying capacity. Again, we have to worry about carrying capacity at the local level, the regional level, as well as at the global level. And all this has to be backed up by credible regulation, and certainly at the local level you can create a lot of harm if the regulations are lax. Two last points I thought I'll include in this list. One is in dealing with green economy. I think it's true for everything, but more particularly so when it comes to dealing with green economy. And that's an issue of expertise versus activism. I believe that all problems must be handled with by sort of bringing to bear the requisite level and requisite kind of subjects in terms of expertise, because activism leads to pointing a problem, and which is important. Pointing out a problem is important, but as I will come to later, without a fuller appreciation of the impact, not only in the context of that specific problem, but also in the lateral context, one tends to exaggerate. And in matters of environment, one tends to exaggerate almost, as it were painting a catastrophe picture. And that's the problem of activism. I think I have in fact several lectures, particularly to young students. I in fact urge them, for God's sake, it's good to be aware, good to raise questions, raise issues, but don't restrict yourself to be an activist. Doesn't solve anybody's problem. You must have expertise. Of course, you can't have expertise in everything around, but at least some domain you must have expertise. And then, so that whenever an issue either you raise or somebody else raises, then you can team up with people with complementary expertise and address that problem. Because otherwise, we go nowhere except to remain a debating society. And the last thing I think we must recognize when we are talking about green economy, this famous point made by Madam Indira Gandhi. In fact, she made this in Nairobi in a global environment summit, saying that we must recognize that poverty is the worst polluter. And I think that's a very prophetic statement which we must remember. Now here I depart from what you would expect. To me it looks that the as the so-called economic well-being of people improve, you know on one side you are on a scale where additional improvements in terms of the level of earnings, it gets into this principle of diminishing returns. On the other hand, the risk perceptions, and again you have to distinguish risk perception to whom? Risk perception to society as a whole, risk perception in terms of people who need development desperately, or risk perception in terms of only limited set of people who are actually well above the average strata. And this risk perception changes as you move up. One becomes more and more risk averse. It's, I think, quite natural to expect, but we must understand that dynamics that plays behind this. The consequence of that has been that with the advent of the knowledge economy or knowledge-driven economy, and this is what we're very rapidly moving into this era of knowledge-driven economy. You would find that the societies which were at some stage, in fact, they generated a lot of wealth by value-added products or materials and market, essentially manufacturing things. Now they have gone to a level where they no longer want to deal with that, but much rather want to deal with market technologies and shift. You must have heard this, shift the manufacturing or the so-called dirty job to the third world, and then we react to that in some way. Some of them have gone even beyond. They now talk about marketing innovation, not only technology. And in fact, there are arguments that the whole economy can in fact be supported on this kind. And obviously, you can very well visualize that as you move up on the knowledge ladder, your own activity tends to become more and more clean. Now, and this is a very important thing that we need to understand. That first of all, even if one is talking about the lowest of the lowest, just dig up some raw material and sell it off. And there are environment issues. Now, you can address those environment issues in terms of wealth generation, per unit wealth generation. You enhance the value addition, you get the same wealth with lower level of activity in terms of materials involved or in terms of wealth involved, because in terms of economy it's a more intense process. And so for a given wealth generation, the environmental impact comes down. Secondly, even to minimize the environmental impact on whatever activity one is engaged, even if it is at the lowest level, by bringing in knowledge inputs, you can bring down the environmental impact. So it works both ways. But the key to me is that in the modern times, we must, of course, emphasis on education, one can derive that importance from almost a very large number of factors, and you'll find, whichever you look at it, you'll come back to the same thing. We must emphasize on education. We must emphasize on moving towards knowledge society. But I thought I must highlight that in the context of green economy, also the education and knowledge plays an extremely important role. We must also remember that we are a large country and we are perhaps at a very, very low level in terms of the development status, in terms of economic status, and also in terms of the status of education in the society. And we have to deal with the whole spectrum. So we cannot take an extreme attitude that because we're sitting at the highest level of knowledge is most green, so that we can manage all activities in the country like that. Not possible. So we need to recognize that we are talking about a large system and with large number of people with its own huge diversity. And while there must be programs to lift everybody above on whatever scale one is talking about, but then we need to attend to welfare of all people, and to that extent, I think it is inevitable that as a large country, we need to be engaged in all those activities, even as we create drive towards knowledge economy. So it's not selecting that, well, I'll concentrate myself only on this or only on that. I think as a society, as a nation, we need to address all layers and see what are the improvements which can be made at different layers, bringing knowledge to be around that. I'll come to the specifics with respect to energy and then later a little bit on material processing, manufacturing, and then I'll come to even rural economy. But I thought I must make this point. We all talk about environment impact or environment impact assessment in the context of any project that one take up. Now, in all that, you always often hear, we create some, of course you create some intervention by way of any project, it is bound to have some impact. And so it's important that we are able to quantitatively analyze that impact, and that's what the environmental impact assessment is all about. Now, strictly speaking, we also need to realize, and I'll show that in the context of electricity in a moment, we need to realize that when you are sitting on the lower end of the scale of, let's say, GDP, and then you create an economic activity which will raise the GDP. Now, there will be always an optimum threshold, and if you enhance GDP while you are below that threshold, you will find you are generating wealth, which in turn can be used to in fact improve environment. Again it comes back to, if you have no wealth, poverty all around, you cannot carry out interventions to improve the environment. Population pressure is there, you cannot help it. So, generation of wealth, when you are below a threshold, in fact can contribute to improvement in economy. That obviously is not the case when you have gone beyond a particular threshold, because then you have done everything that we can, and then the additional consumptive lifestyle of course would create problems. So there is this question of balancing the risks and benefits, and the answer of that would depend on which side of the optimum you are. Stated differently, it means that to visualize that, and this is where the point of activism comes in. If you say that any major intervention, developmental intervention, will have serious impact, and so we should not have it, it assumes that do-nothing approach to economic development, then things will remain status quo. If there is no intervention, we assume that the environment will remain the way it is. That actually is not true. It's a very fundamental point that not many people appreciate. In a society society where population pressure is large, if you adopt a do-nothing approach, environment will guaranteedly degrade. This is, according to me, as simple as that. Because there are needs of people and the needs grow, both because number of people are increasing and also aspirations of people are increasing. And so it's important that we are able to quantitatively model the socio-economic dynamics, socio-economic environment dynamics in the society. I have, when I was dealing with implementing projects in atomic, I struggled very hard to find out people who can do this. Unfortunately, till today, I have not found any. I have also tried to interact with organizations to say that, well, can you conduct some or carry out or implement some programs where as a country we develop this expertise so that at least 5-10 years down the line we are able to do that. And I'm sorry to say not many people are interested, because that's a tough one. I know in some countries this is done. When you are looking at a project and the environmental impact assessment, you look at the baseline on the basis of such modeling, and then you look at different scenarios in terms of different interventions, developmental interventions, and then compare the result of different interventions with the base scenario. And then, of course, the society has the option to choose the best. Now, unfortunately, we in our country we set some norms, which is of course necessary. You have to set some norms, and then we carry out an environmental impact assessment. You have a project, what it will discharge, what it will have an impact, and then compare that with whatever norms are set. And that is an extremely simplistic way of doing it, which does not actually address the people wanting to compare the development and choices, and then we get into this endless debate. And so it comes back to the same point that I think you have to bring in knowledge to bear on this issue of understanding the impact on the environment. Let me now come to energy. You must have seen this curve several times. This particular one is a plot of Human Development Index as a function of electricity consumption in per capita terms. And as you can see, there is a steep rise in the beginning stages, which in turn means that you put in additional energy into the system and the quality of life steeply rises. It rises up to around, I have put that point, the optimum point, which corresponds to around 5,000 kilowatt hour per capita. And beyond that, you will find this is literally steady. Of course, you can't talk about a Human Development Index greater than 1, that's the maximum. Recognize that the average of most of the advanced countries, the per capita consumption is at least 2 times or 3 times, sometimes 4 times larger than that optimum point. In India, we are, I think, a factor of 7, a factor of 8 lower compared to that optimum. I'm talking about India, I'm not talking about Goa. Goa, you are better off. But you are still lower. Goa, we are, I think factor of 2.5 lower than that optimum point. But Goa is, I think, 3 times better, around 3 times better than the national average. And this is the point I was making. If you are on the left side of that optimum, you will find that, of course, there is a risk. There is nothing which is risk-free. But the risks that society takes are far, far smaller compared to the benefit the society gets. You can actually, people have quantified this. You know, if you have the risk coefficients, and you can work out the gain because of whatever benefit. If it is health, then what is, you can work out the gain in terms of life expectancy and the risks in terms of the loss of life. And exactly very similar to this, and you can actually show that the benefit is much higher up to that optimum point. And we must remember, as I said, that we are far, far below that optimum. How to reach that optimum point is the question. I think it's even if one were to use coal-fired power units, I can assure you, in terms of, well, it may not qualify that this is a green approach, but in terms of the overall status of environment, things will in fact improve. I am prepared to debate this with anybody. It's only beyond that point that one can argue. At least, of course, depending on what parameter one puts on the y-axis, that points may shift a little bit here and there, but it is going to be way above the present situation that we have. Now, in terms of the distance that we need to cover to reach that point, I thought I just put these numbers for you to appreciate. If you take this, OECD are the countries which are beyond a particular GDP threshold, or the so-called advanced countries, industrially advanced countries. They roughly are 3 to 4 times better in terms of annual per capita consumption on the global average. And as I said, the non-OECD, the developing world, is roughly 6 to 7 times lower compared to the so-called OECD countries, enhancing electricity availability by a factor of 8 or 9 is not easy. It's going to take time, and by that time our population will go up even more. Maybe it will stabilize at 1.6 billion. Maybe it will stabilize at 1.8 billion. I don't know. But the fact still remains that we will need to produce something like 8 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity in our country from the present 0.8 trillion, so 10 times more, partly because of increase in per capita and a little part because of increase in population. Also notice that 8 trillion kilowatt hours is roughly 40% or little more than 40% of the total electricity produced in the world. So we need to add in India 40% of the global production of electricity for us to reach to a level of some respectable quality of life. You may argue why you need all that. I think in my view the only answer is if you don't do that, we have to remain with that development gap with the rest of the world, and in a competitive, interconnected world that we live in today. I don't know whether that's a situation that should be acceptable at all. Now I don't want to go into, but just to say that it so happens that in energy field sustainable solution and the green economy solution actually coincides. If you look at these numbers, the numbers are actually the total reserves that we have. 3 columns: reserves in the world, reserves in China, reserves in India, and in bracket the level of production that we are doing that. And it so happens, so the difference will tell the number of years it would last at the present level of consumption. And you would notice that most of these resources, there are variations, while they will last at the present level of consumption to maybe 100 years, 80 years, 200 years. But as far as India is concerned, if we talk about 5,000 kilowatt hour per capita, then all of them will last for very little time. Obviously, if we increase the consumption by 10 times, the sustenance period will come down by a factor of 10. So you will find the coal will last not more than 11-12 years at that rate of consumption. Even uranium in a kind of once through mode, hardly a few months kind of coal we have. Cycle maybe 18 years, not very large. Even the renewables, the hydro, which is, we have a huge hydro potential. But seen in the context of the energy that we need, it will hardly contribute to 7.5% of the total requirement. So on the non-renewable, thorium is the only answer. I have not counted fusion at this moment because it's a technology in development, and by the time it will be available commercially, it may well be 50 years and beyond. And at that time, of course, it will become very important. But for this time horizon, thorium on the non-renewable side and solar on the renewable side are the only 2 energy resources. And of course, both are green. They don't emit carbon dioxide. Can we live with one of them? Answer is no. There is a great complementarity between them. One you can produce in bulk, other is a distributed source, one can be produced on a continuous manner, 24/7, other only when the sun shines, and so on and so forth. So there is actually a great complementarity, and then, so it's absolutely important that we need to take recourse to both of them. And as I said, they are green. Now we are all concerned with the climate change. There has been debate whether this concern is for real or not. There is now understanding and acceptance worldwide that the climate change threat is for real. And in fact, you can see the evidence of the temperatures continuously rising. In fact, it's this reason why the world community at the apex level, the G8, has taken notice of this issue some years back, and with a great drive towards this debate. You have heard all the debate, which is of course a very contentious debate and very difficult. The difficulty is essentially on account of what I showed you earlier. On one side, there is a development gap, and in fact, going up on the development ladder is in fact the solution towards green economy. But that won't be accepted for the segment of people who are beyond that, because for them, they have already passed that threshold. So for them, it's only the negative in a global context. We may emit more carbon dioxide, and we can show that we are still well below the carbon dioxide emitted by the richer countries, and of course because we improve the we get several other sort of local and regional environment benefits. But on the global environment, there is that concern. So anyway, that debate, I think, will remain a tough one to resolve. But the point is, this threat is for real. There may be debate whether the 2 degrees that people are talking about is the tipping point, or tipping point is lower than that or higher than that. So we don't know how close to tipping point we are. But we can't wait for that to happen. But if that happens, then there is no return. We will not know how to go. The whole thing will get into an extremely unstable domain. So I think wisdom demands that we act on these issues now. And that's where I emphasize on both nuclear, where I spent my whole lifetime, and solar. Just to say that on nuclear and technological terms we have done well. We have to do a lot in terms of scale-up, deployment scale-up. A lot of work has to be done. But there is no doubt that in terms of technology, we have everything in place. On solar technology, in terms of technology transfer, is not such a big issue as nuclear was. But solar technology also, I think we need to do a lot in terms of technologies which are appropriate to us. I have divided solar technology domain in roughly 4 domains. One division on the basis of photovoltaics and thermal, solar thermal, and the other division on the basis of whether it's a grid connected energy generation or it is an off-grid energy. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with different modes of generation. The challenge before us is solar energy necessarily requires a very large collection area. For example, if you need to tap solar energy, it will meet the country's total needs at the scale of 5,000 kilowatt hour per capita. You will need to deploy something like 45,000 square kilometers of area to collect that. Fortunately, we have that land, and we can deploy that land without any conflict between land for human use, land for agriculture, and land for energy generation as well. But if you look at just the barren, uncultivable land in India, and there are classifications available for that, and 1/4 of barren, uncultivable land, if one is able to deploy, you can in fact collect enough solar energy to meet country's needs. But then this land will be long stretches of desert. This could be areas which are snow-clad. So they could be located in very inhospitable climate. If you are talking about desert, the dust load is high, the sand moves at great velocity, there is an aberration. And when you are talking about large collection areas, the durability of these surfaces to withstand these environmental factors is an important issue. We will have to tackle that problem. West is not going to tackle that problem for us. Second question is, you must set up these power plants without the need for too much of water. Solar thermal, if you need water. You can't find a lot of water in deserts. When you look at power station, you come to closer to sea. That may not be the best place for every place we can generate solar energy in a decentralized mode by putting things on housetops, by several standalone systems. But while that is important, it's not going to solve the problem of electricity on that scale. And so we need, core point is we need technologies where we can actually show that the investments that one makes in solar energy would in fact be viable, profitable. Whatever we invest, we keep producing, remain productive for 20 years, 25 years, and 50 years. And that's the challenge that I think we need. There are also issues of further advancement, greater efficiency of photovoltaics, issues of combining, creating hybrids between solar, thermal, and photovoltaics. Originally when I started talking about it, people were looking at me as, what is this strange thing this fellow is talking about? But now I find these things are emerging. There are people in Stanford and other places who are actually working on this. And I'm absolutely certain another 4 or 5 years down the line, you will see these things getting commercial. Because I think that's the necessity. So, I think if you want to make transition from the fossil energy to green energy, or to move towards a carbon-free energy cycle, in my way of thinking, you must organize your energy system the way it is depicted in this chart. Now, see, you need primary energy for production of electricity, you need primary energy for transportation, you need primary energy for supporting industries. So you need primary energy in a variety of forms. Nuclear and solar, you would get, you know how to produce electricity, we know how to produce heat. But what about the needs of transportation sector, where you may also require fluid forms of energy which you can carry as in a tank or with a backpack, or you can transport it through pipeline instead of transporting electricity through wires. So this is one issue, and so you need a host of technologies which will allow you to produce fluid fuels, and hydrogen is kind of most evolved case of those production of fluid fuels. So there needs to be a lot of technology development of that kind. Another set of technology development could be that you use primary energy from these two sources and convert, for example, biomass and hydrogen together and convert them into fluid forms which are compatible. For example, an artificial diesel. People talk about producing dimethyl ether out of biomass and hydrogen, and it will do the same job as a diesel does in your diesel engine, but then a fuel of completely non-fossil origin. So you need technologies to do that, and of course some work has been initiated. You also need technologies to, for example, there is so much of carbon dioxide around. People talk about sequestration, and the thing is that you take this carbon dioxide and pump it in sea or pump it in some geological formation. Now, I think that's an activist solution. It's not going to, the amount of energy that you require is simply too large, and the question is, you gain nothing out of it. You can as well spend that energy in forcing a reaction between carbon dioxide and hydrogen. People already, huge chemical processes based on the reactions between carbon monoxide and hydrogen. So it's a matter of further development of catalysts or development of other methods. But recycle carbon dioxide to produce artificial hydrocarbons. The same job. Why can't we do that? And I'm not, I must impress upon you that I'm not talking about some imaginary daydreaming. These are actually possible, provided we put in certain amount of. I know a few Nobel laureates are working on making this possible. Unfortunately, in our country, we don't look at a problem and address. So we do research what can be done so that I can publish a paper, which is important. But I think we need to do research to address a problem. If I don't get a paper for 20 years, doesn't matter, according to me. And that is what we need to be able to do. Of course, if we say that, well, we continue our research, I am sure 5-10 years down the line this will appear, that technology will appear, but it will appear in a form which is designed for somebody else or designed to exploit our markets. And then we don't really move up the value chain the way I was talking about. Okay, I think I must quickly wind it up now. Now I want to talk about a few, I'll leave this broader issue there, but a few opportunities, very, very simple opportunities which make big difference. For example, solar powered pumps for agriculture. Now we know that today agriculture depends on grid supplied pumps. The two things happen. Because you are not able to, or electricity boards are not able to collect cost, and this was essentially free. So on one side there is overpumping, nobody bothers about switching off the pump. So we are losing the groundwater table. But more than that, there is over irrigation in those areas and the soils are getting spoiled. There are many cases where this is happening. So this is one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is because the agricultural consumers don't pay, the industrial consumers have to pay for them. So the time to industry goes up. So the cost of energy in industry goes up, so our economy is in trouble. Imagine that you put solar powered pumps, standalone solar powered pumps, disconnected from the grid by law. I think two things will happen. One, solar power energy is available only when sun shines. So to that extent, I think pumping will be more optimized. There is certain degree of matching between when the sun shines and when you require water to be pumped for irrigation. Not 100%, there is a good match. So this is on one side. There will be some optimum use of water and problem of over irrigation to some extent will come under check. But more important is once you have freed the grid from supplying the non-paying electricity, you can actually bring down the tariff. And if you bring down the tariff, the cost of energy to industry will come down, and I think economy will get that much more boost. If you decide to put through DCUs, you avoid inverters, so you save cost. So, of course, you may wonder when all this is so rosy, why things are not happening. But I think that we need to debate on some other platform. Same thing about lighting, many, but this may not be very relevant to Goa, but there are many parts of the country where there is no electricity, or even if there is electricity, the supply is not there. So the areas are in darkness. So you need lights. What is the source of light in these areas? Kerosene. Kerosene is supplied by the government at great subsidy. So if you avoid burning of a liter of kerosene, you save that much of subsidy, and of course you also save that much of the emission or pollution out of kerosene, and produce light using solar energy, which actually is a better quality light. So I think you can help study of children and at the same time save environment, and you can do this at in fact, the back of envelope calculations which I had done, they almost appear cost neutral as far as exchequer is concerned, because you save on subsidy, you pump in that money and giving free lights to people, and as a society we will gain. I leave energy there. Let me come to manufacturing or production sector. I had just given one example. There are many ways of looking at it. You process some raw material, you produce some marketable product, and you also produce some waste. And that is where the issue of environment comes in. I have taken the case of aluminium production, where lots of, you process bauxite and a lot of red mud is left as waste. And this is a global issue. There are huge pile-ups of red mud, not only in India, worldwide. In a manner of speaking, and then of course you create these dams and store them for food, and then of course you prepare a green layer above. But that's a way of waste storage. Dr. K.K. Gadda, many of you might have heard, is a very eminent chemical engineer. He has come up with this idea, and he has actually done work on pilot scale and patented processes. It's only a question of carrying this forward. He says he can use red mud. Instead of treating this as a waste, you can treat that as a resource. And to get energy, instead of using good quality metallurgical coal, he says, he has actually shown on a pilot, he uses ordinary high ash, poor quality coal in it. So he takes that coal, puts it through pyrolysis, produces char on one side, produces the volatiles go in the form of hydrocarbons on the other side. He uses hydrocarbon for producing power, also converts that hydrocarbon into liquid fuel, dimethyl ether, which I mentioned here. The char, along with red mud, he uses to sort of produce alumina, titanium, iron. And then alumina, titanium, he puts through a better refined electrolytic cell to produce aluminium and titanium with much lesser energy cost. In fact, he talks about around 40% less energy cost. And he says his ambition is, and he is a person with great credibility. This whole industry has been based on his own R&D. So I put credibility to his words. He says that he can use red mud as a resource and produce aluminium, titanium at a cost cheaper than the currently production cost of these materials, and with no new arisings of red mud. Question is, when I came across it, I asked him how the government policy can be used to shape this up. And you will find there is no way, the way we are structured, the government policy will work. It doesn't belong to steel ministry because it's deals with many things other than iron. It doesn't belong to chemical industry because it deals with metals and it deals with hydrocarbon. It doesn't belong to coal because it's not coal. It doesn't belong to petroleum because it's not petroleum. So all of them are doing the activities which are doing, on some way, somewhere else are happening, but they are happening in a way, and then we keep shouting about environment. So this is the point about that knowledge-driven economy. We are actually not structured. In fact, what we are missing is the right ecosystem. I think Indians are great people, plenty of ideas. I am also giving you some ideas. Does that transform into reality? Why does that transform into reality? Because we lack that ecosystem. Same people, you transpose them to United States and they do wonders. Many of them you feel, we never knew this fellow can do this. He was not as bright as I was. The difference is ecosystem. And I think we need to create that ecosystem. Ecosystem in our education systems, ecosystem in government, ecosystem in industry. And ecosystem necessarily means working together, different domains, interacting with each other. We have great walls, silos. And if you have those silos, you cannot solve these problems. And then we keep arguing about the environment, because argument doesn't require that ecosystem. It's there, already there. I come to the last. We all, are very concerned about garbage. Now, just as Redmond is a big resource, in my view, garbage also is a great resource. And if you treat garbage as a resource, you will find you can solve your environment problem. What does garbage contain? Garbage contains inorganics which cannot be digested or burnt, but most of them can be recycled. Aluminium can be recycled, iron can be recycled, paper can be recycled, paper can be also digested. So, and we have, I think there is great consciousness in terms of segregation. If we organize the use of garbage or segregated garbage in a manner that whatever can be recycled will recycle, the rest, I think there will be two kinds of organic materials. Those which can be burned, meaning they have some calorific value, and those which of course have calorific value but which can also be digested. If we decide, in fact there are technologies available now where we can whatever is biodigestible, you can digest, convert them into methane, produce energy. And the only other thing that remains is a very good quality manure. So you can in fact enrich your soils back by returning carbonaceous matter into soil. And nothing else, there is no risk. Those which cannot be easily digested, you can still burn, carbonize them, produce energy. Of course, it will lead to certain amount of emission, but you will find on the whole it will still be a better solution. And good part of remaining can be recycled. And you would agree with me that all of them are valuable. So what is the problem of garbage? And I think we need to address that issue. Of course, biodigesters are plenty, many people have tried it. There is nothing big about technology. Nisargaruna is a design of biodigester done in Bharat, Bioatomic Research Center. And it's a fairly robust design, has been tried out at more than 100 places in the country. So it has been tried out in very diverse climatic regions, it has been tried out in very diverse organizational setups. It has been tried out in the hands of very diverse people with very different kinds of skill sets. And it works uniformly well in all these areas. And of course these slides are somewhat dated, but of course compared to the arising of garbage, these numbers are not very large. But in terms of creating or convincing about the credibility of the process, these numbers are large enough. They run in thousands of tons. So this can be done. In fact, we have tried out in Bombay where you can entrust the job of collection of garbage and its use in such Nisarga plants to, anyway there are plenty of rag pickers in Mumbai. You entrust this job to some, say, 5 or 6 of them. Collect the segregated digestible, or if it is not segregated, they segregate themselves. Put the responsibility of running the plant to them and give them return out of the methane they produce as well as out of the manure they produce. You treat it as their property. They sell and earn. And the experience shows that it sustains their livelihood and they have the ownership of these plants running well. As far as the capital investment is concerned, I think there are plenty of support systems. In fact, Planning Commission says under the Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission, they are prepared to fund, many ministries are prepared to fund. So it requires very little capital support other than what grants or supports are available. And as far as running the cost, it is self-sustaining. So I think it can be, it's a good solution. That carrying this experience forward, we have also gone a step beyond, and that is to get into, I think, drive it from point of view of the eco-friendly village development, but it's actually eco-friendly village development because it's a growth model, economic growth model. We started engaging with NGOs in villages, and we just tell them that, look, these are all the technologies or technology ideas, but we don't do this in a manner of pushing a technology. We just tell them that, look, you can look at it, you can reconfigure it, you can package it differently in a manner which can be done with the help of village artisans, in a manner which you think is more appropriate. And in the process, of course, we create a demonstration center in the village. Quite apart from creating these products, innovated in villages, it also becomes a demonstration come training ground for a number of other people from other nearby villages. And it starts a whole movement. We have done this in more than a dozen places around the country again. And my colleague in Bharat tell me that they have now touched more than 6 lakh villages through this dozen centers. And these centers, they were, of course, we said that we're not going to give you any grant from Bharat. Not that money was a problem, but that, an approach towards self-sustainability was the important challenge. So they raised money through other sources, other grant organizations, banks, whatever. And some of them are already more than 3 years old, and they say, no, we don't require any money, they are self-sustaining. 1 or 2 of them tell me that they are now wanting to replicate that using their own resources. So such things can be done, and that's the power of technology. These demonstration centers, they are all zero discharge centers. They have a Nisarga plant, they grow their own agriculture, horticulture, whatever is the residue, agricultural residue that goes in Nisarga plants. The energy that comes and the food produce or other produce, they run a small cottage industry on food processing and prepare products and sell. They run a little aquaculture. Again, sort of that water recycles. They told me 6 months back when I went to a place that over a 3-4 year period they have averted so many people who had otherwise gone to Mumbai. Now they have decided to stay in the village. I in fact met a MBA graduate, young girl, a just passed MBA. She has made a lifetime decision to just stay there and work because she said this is a good way of entrepreneurship. Now you can create such transformations, and the most important thing they told me that this whole thing is zero discharge. There is nothing waste. In fact, we can eradicate this concept of waste. Every waste is a resource. The God has made us like that. So everything, and that's where I said maintaining the equilibrium in different kinds of cycles. If we can organize ourselves in such a way that we are able to run balanced cycles, then there is nothing called waste. And if there is nothing called waste, there need be no issue with regard to environment. So everything becomes, I don't know, green or blue or whatever, but I think everything becomes eco-friendly. We can do one more thing, and this is the next experiment that we are just about to begin, and that is you have these akrutis, but you can now link akrutis with the knowledge center. So this light blue domain, which is shaded by a boundary or covered by a boundary, you can imagine that to be a university, but in a village. You can imagine that to be a university where world-class research is being done. I'm not saying that it's happening right now, but I think we can move towards that. World-class research can be happening there. So you create facilities where the best of researchers from wherever, they would feel like coming and conducting or pursuing the research in this place. But you connect this with these akrutis, which I described earlier, in the neighborhood, where they are engaged in development. They will, of course, there are local artisans, there are several people who need to be trained, who need to be brought in new knowledge. So you have an activity in this university campus which is aimed at the human capacity building, which is specific to the needs of those akrutis. The faculty on this campus should interact with them to understand core problems where they can conduct research that can be of use to the neighborhood. We all talk about technology. I think nanotechnology can do wonders here, provided we direct it that way. And so I think doing grassroots development and pursuing world-class research can go hand in hand. Or for that matter, the key to success would lie in making it go hand in hand. And if you are able to do that, that's what I mean by so-called knowledge-driven development or knowledge-driven economy. If you can do that, I think you can create activity, including industrial activity arising out of technologies coming out of the center, which can create huge value addition opportunities in rural areas. If you have created world-class urban amenities, if you have created world-class income generating ability in villages, why should there be migration from villages to cities? We have this huge infrastructure problem. Now, I quite understand that this migration cannot be, urbanization is bound to take place. But we can at least arrest that trend, reduce the velocity, and in turn match the larger population in villages with the commensurate economic activity for them. And if you are able to do that, you solve the problems of villages, you solve the problems of large cities. And as I said again, it's the application of knowledge which only can do this. And that's one which we aim at. And this is my last slide. You can, as I said, on one side you have the knowledge domain, in between you have this development domain, and on the extreme left We also talk about financial inclusion. We have there are a lot of efforts made on the banking sector to create financial inclusion. We have done that in the form of recognizing groups and creating empowerment there. Cooperative is a good example. But while cooperative is better than other exploitative mechanisms, but still there is a bit of exploitation still there. We also have the microfinance kind of support, where there is individual self-help groups are supported by microfinance. But there are problems in the sense they have difficulties in terms of accessing these resources, because the individual identity is too weak to exert. And so it looks to me that you need to combine this individual identity with the group identity in a manner that both prevail, but together they are able to exert better. And if you do that, then the development model, opportunity development model, which is a kind of a grassroots development which can replicate itself. And as I told you that you invest once there. Now the question is then how can you enhance that rate? And that rate can be enhanced, the rate of replication can be enhanced by creating this financial inclusion. And if one is able to do that, then we can in fact go through this process relatively faster. Of course, this means that we are talking about a bottom-up development model. That doesn't mean that we can give up top-down development model. I think we need both. The top-down development model where there are big programs involving large outlays, involving overcoming the so-called not in my backyard syndrome. They have to be driven from top, because otherwise it will not move. But at the same time, there is a much larger part of development which can be driven through a bottom-up approach. Now we already have this kind of Panchayati Raj system and all. So the ideas are there, but I think if you bring in the participation of people, the knowledge inputs for their being able to do these things better, empowerment through financial support, several things can be achieved and achieved in an accelerated state. So we really need a judicious combination of top-down and bottom-up models. And the last point that I wish to make again is related to the way human mind works, and I call that the true concern for safety and environment versus what I said in the beginning, the catastrophe syndrome that we tend to paint. How does that come about? Take example of transport. I ask you to look at travel by car, travel by train, and travel by air. And your normal perception will tell you that travel by car is the safest, travel by train maybe safe enough but not as safe as car, and travel by air is the riskiest. That's actually false. If you ask a question per passenger kilometer traveled, what are the fatalities? And you collect the data, and this data is over a long period of time in almost all countries. You will come to the conclusion that travel by air is the safest, travel by train is next, and travel by car is actually the riskiest of all. If you add bullock cart there, you will find that is even more risky. Take the case of energy, and you can compare different modes of energy production, and these numbers are available now. You can Just Google them and you'll get these numbers. Your perception would be that the old methods of energy production were safer, and newer methods, particularly nuclear, are the most riskier. Actual numbers will tell you exactly reverse. Even after accounting for Chernobyl, Fukushima, of course, Fukushima, there were no deaths and no health effects. Zero health effects, zero health, only the effect on psychological mind. But even accounting for everything, they will tell you that the fatality per kilowatt hour or megawatt hour or gigawatt hour, whichever you look at it, is the least in nuclear. The only thing that compares favorably is solar, and all others are more risky. So as I said, back to my old point, that these are the two energy systems which are not only eco-friendly but also safest. So with this I will stop, and I know I must have left several issues open-ended in your minds. But I think each one of them will